Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Welcome to the Sunday chat, regular feature for those who are new. Before we get into anything else, thanks to everybody who supports the channel, and that can be in many ways. We've got the patrons, regular contributors, buy me a coffee, now and again people. We've got people who buy the merchandise, again, now and again people. At least you get something for it. And then people who share the video in other places, their Facebook pages or whatever, and the people who are subscribed and those who are about to. And as always, the thumbs up people. Doesn't take any effort to do the thumbs up, does it? Or down if you feel that way inclined. That's that out of the way. It's a Sunday feature. I only ever do all that stuff on a Sunday. I know some people do it every time. I can't be bothered, and two, I personally find it a little annoying. So what have we got then? In a packed video today, we have got some news and views. I haven't got many views really. I've given up on views. But yeah, we got some news. We got some purchases, not necessarily orchids, but sort of related to the channel anyway, and we've got some blooms to look at, and then the main chat I think is going to be about having been in this environment now for a while. It's not perfect, so what can I do to make it better? So it's the plans for the near future to actually get this place better than it is now, and one of the main reasons we'll get on to, but it's actually quite important, and it means that these plants are not in the environment they're used to, and I need to make that up. So without further ado and all that nonsense, let's get going. Okay, news and views and stuff then. News is I've had some deliveries done, and the latest delivery drivers used the button to ring the doorbell as opposed to throwing the parcel over the gate, leaving it in the road, and delivering it to addresses totally nothing to do with my address. So we've had a few more sensible deliveries, which is good. And something I'm now never going to do again, and it's wasteful and I don't like it, but I'm getting fed up with it. I ordered some more bug spray, and there was a discount for buying two. So you've got quantity and you choose the quantity. Now this has happened several times now. When you buy one, everything's fine. When you buy two, only one turn up, despite the fact that you've paid for two, and you've then got a hassle to deal with it. So I've just had another one of those. Bought two, only got one. So you send the seller a message. I don't do bad feedback immediately on eBay. I always give people a chance. People make mistakes. The person whose company it is might not be the same person that packs the goods. Yeah? And the person who packs the goods might be chatting and drinking coffee and not concentrating. That's life in the universe and stuff. But yeah, from now on, when it's free postage, it's wasteful, but I'm going to buy things like that one at a time. I'll buy one, come out and go back in and buy another one. Now that way I've got two, and there'll be two boxes with one in each, and I'll get the two that I ordered. I might lose out on a few pennies of discount, but I don't need the hassle of chasing people up for not delivering what was ordered. So that's that. That's my views. Not doing any more. What's the next thing then? I think the next thing is purchases, because I can stand here and you can watch the birdies out the window if there are any. Purchases. I went out to get all the goodies that I need, not only to repot the bonsai, but also to plant up some garden tubs to actually get some colour in the garden. And I've had a donation to specifically buy a buddleia bush for the butterflies, which will need to go in the sun. So I bought some general purpose compost, peat free obviously, and I bought some John Innes number 2, which is, well, dirt basically, but it puts some substance into a mix. It's actually quite important. And I bought some horticultural grit, big bag of that. That will get used for lining the bottom of the bonsai pots to make sure there's good drainage, and mixing in the mix. I've been told by several people, when you're mixing up your stuff to go to whatever you're going to plant your bonsai in, you pick it up and you go like that. And if you can't hear it, it hasn't got enough grit in. It should crunch. Yeah. And I also bought a bag of a specific bonsai mix off of eBay to try. At the old place I had Akadama, which is a hard-baked red clay, very popular with bonsai people. Some people plant their bonsai trees just in that. Well, if you want to water it 3 or 4 times a day, that's fine. I don't. But it's good to mix in, and that went off in the other shed, got thrown away. So I bought a mix of, it's got the Akadama in it, it's got some grit, it's got some molar and something else. But it's a base mix that you can use to add to other stuff for bonsai. So I've got lots of choices to mix up, because I've got different trees out here. I've got maples, some other native trees. I've got my conifer, which is that needs totally different mix. So yeah, I've got all that stuff now. What else did I buy? Oh, I bought the bird stuff out there. There's 2 items that are just, talk about greedy. The sunflower hearts, they just go down an inch in the container every day, because that's what most of the birds are eating. And the other things that they've absolutely gobbled are the round fat balls, the suet balls with all the seeds and stuff in. And it's the starlings that hog those, and obviously they're quite larger birds. They take that down quite quickly, so they're gone now. But there's some more coming in my shopping tomorrow to keep the bird feeders need to be there all the time. If birds start coming around and the feed's not there, they'll find somewhere else, and then they might not even come back. So, and what we've got out there now regular is a pair of chaffinches and a pair of goldfinches, sparrows, starlings, robins. They're my regulars basically. They're the ones that are there most of the time. There's wrens in the garden, hedge sparrows, dunnocks in the garden, and I saw another goldcrest. Talk about strange. I was looking out of the spare bedroom window. I went in there to get something out of the bureau, and this hedge thing behind me, this evergreen hedge, climbs up to virtually that window, and just there was a goldcrest. Like, I was a metre away from it, the other side of the window. I absolutely froze. It actually pecked around in those twigs for some time before it disappeared up into the big tree. So yeah, birds are doing okay. I'm pleased with the activity. It's doing okay. That's that. Right, the next thing is to have a look at some blooms. So for that, I'll have to turn the camera off for a bit, because it's going to take me a while to get the plants out. Some of them are buried, and I don't want to waste time with the camera just pointing out the window. So I'll shut down for a bit while I get the plants out, then we'll have a look at the blooms. Right, here we go then. Yowling in the background is Mojo. He seems to be doing that quite a lot now. I don't know why, but he just yowls quite a bit. It might be because his world's changed and he doesn't understand it. Because he's virtually deaf now, what that must be like for an animal that you can't explain things to. I mean, if we went deaf, we would understand that our ears are up the swanny. Once we could hear, now we can't, and we've got to live with it. But animals don't understand, and I think he feels strange. But yeah, he does yowl a bit now. Right, Dendrobium prima donna. The previous blooms I showed you, if you remember, had bright pink tips all the way round, and I explained at the time that this one is very variable, and that sometimes the blooms come out without the pink tips. So just so that you see that I'm not making things up, these latest 2 blooms here have got virtually no pink on them at all. This bloom has none, and this bloom has the tiniest amount there and there. and on the tip of the lip. So that's that. We've got a nice new growth on this now as well, so it's coming back to life. I don't normally say this about dendrobiums, but that needs a bigger pot. It doesn't need repotting, it just needs an attempt at getting it out, which will lose a few roots that have come through the bottom, and just getting some more media around the outside of that. And it needs to be media that holds moisture better, because although it's got some coconut husk in it, it's very little, it's mostly bark, and it's just drying too fast now. Now we're getting into the growing season. It'll dry faster than its normal watering cycle, which is not good. So that's that one. Stand up, will you? And the next one is along the same lines, only bigger. This is my sweet pinky Momoko. It's a big nobly type plant, very big, and it will not behave itself. It blooms twice a year whether I like it or not, and I just have to live with it. So new canes will partly bloom, and then at another time of the year the rest of the cane will bloom, and that's just the way it seems to have settled down. But blooms on this have got good colour and they are large. As nobly blooms go, you won't get much larger than that. And it's, as I said, if this could do a mass blooming, it would be a showstopper. But it blooms in dribs and drabs, and that's what it does. There's not much I can do about it. It's got another bud round here, the lonesome one. And again, you know, that's on a cane that's already bloomed part way down, and it's just pushed out another bud. So strange. And down the bottom here, so that we know that spring's on the way, we've got a new growth just starting there and another one there. So that's going to produce 2 new canes this year at least, probably only, which is what it did last year, and I believe it's what it did the year before. Yeah, so it will grow on. But last year's canes, you know, haven't bloomed. They will. As I said, that's a strange one. It doesn't bloom naturally. It seems to bloom odd. And it's been like that since I got it. I wondered whether if, as an experiment, but I'd hate to do it because of the loss of the blooms, is that if I took all the buds off for a whole season, what would it do the following season? I'm not doing it though, I'm not losing those blooms. And then this one is going to be very difficult to show you because of the size, but the Oncidium chrysomorphum is just opening its blooms. Now these are tiny, and I don't even know if I'm going to be able to show you one bloom, because basically you're just looking at lots of little tiny blooms. That's how it looks. But the camera's dead still. The only way I can get a close focus on a single bloom is for the spike to be still as well. I'll do what I can. That's about as good as it's going to get. But these blooms are tiny. You know, they're the size of my fingertip. And when they open, they've got a bronzy look to the petals and sepals. The lip itself is a nice yellow, and the lower 2 sepals are yellow as well, and then the top 2 sepals and the top petal have got this bronzy look to them. So yeah, it's just one of those that has lots and lots of tiny little blooms. So there we go, that's that one. And that's all the things that have opened since we last looked, basically. And there are some more spikes coming, there are some more buds, so there will be some more new blooms in the not too distant future. Not a huge amount though, but the big deal will soon be the resting type dendrobiums that are pushing on nicely now. We've got buds all over the place. I mean, if you take my Jenkinsii is not going to bloom well this year because of what happened to it last year. It's messed it up, unfortunately. But we do have lots of spikes on it. Yeah? So we are going to get a lot of blooms in this area. And if you remember last year, this part got shaded because of the curvature of the mount, yeah, and this part didn't bloom. Well, it's making up for it this year. And unfortunately this part bloomed its head off, and it doesn't seem to be going to do much this year. There are a couple of spikes up this end, but not many. So we're not going to get a mass blooming over the whole plant. But this plant's got to come off this mount. This has got to be sorted out again. Seem to do it every sort of third year. Take it off the mount, get rid of the older bulbs that are never going to bloom and have no leaves on them. So although they can support the plant to a degree, they're sort of taking up space. So we'll see. And I also want to get it on a flat mount, not a curved mount like that. So, as I said, the even little signs of spring like this, these are my Lodigessii kikis that I've stuck on a mount. And there's signs of life at the base. There's tiny little green tips showing. So these are coming back into life. And I'm hoping to get some reasonable sized canes. And that is just silly. Because if that's a bloom, it'll have to come off. It's a tiny little cane. I can't let that bloom. It does look like a bud though, doesn't it? Silly little thing. But I want these, the kikis that did survive, which is not all of them. There's a couple over this side that just didn't make it. Yeah. But the ones that have stayed green, hopefully they will all shoot out from the base. That one's got a little tiny green shoot on it. So they're coming back to life, and hopefully the new growths on here will grow on to a reasonable size that should, in theory, bloom next year. I haven't seen the blooms on Lodigessii for a long time because the main plant went to somebody else and I just kept the kikis. Can't remember who had that one. That's that. I'm not going to get them all out, but some of the long cane ones are not going to bloom as well this year as they have done in the past, because most of them got unmounted, tidied up and remounted, which is a major disturbance, and therefore their canes last year didn't grow as well as they should have done. That should be replaced this year by some good growth and some good canes and masses of new roots. That's the theory what I have. Right, so that's that bit done. Now, I've run out of coffee, that's not good. Right, this video is going to be shorter than it would have been otherwise. No coffee, can't have that. Right, plans for what's wrong here. First of all, light levels are good. I can't complain about that. I've got a lot more light in here than I ever had around the other place. And it's nice even light, diffused from above and bare glass around three sides. It's a nice even light. There don't seem to be shadows being cast anywhere, if you see what I mean. But it's not really bright light, and I don't think I'm going to get any of that. So the really high light orchids, there's a few of the Cattleya types, Francis Fox I believe. If that doesn't get the highlight, it won't bloom. The Vandas and the Rhinantheras, you know, if they don't get that extra bright light that I would get by diffused sun coming through the glass, maybe they won't bloom. But the Rhinantheras haven't bloomed yet anyway, so they didn't bloom around the other place. But because the other place was subjected to intense heat, because the sun was directly on the glass, I had to have lots and lots of shading. So it didn't, you know, I'm sort of saying about bright light, that place was constantly shaded in the growing season, double layers, to try and keep it cool. Well, I'm hoping I don't have to try and keep this place cool. So light levels are going to be better overall, I believe. But the problem we do have is inherent in this keeping it cool, because this place is not warming up. I've just had a look at my two silly little reader things that I've got. They're 2 degrees and 2 points on humidity apart. You know, so chances are the right readings are somewhere in between the two. So if that one says 17 degrees centigrade, that one will say 19, or sometimes even 20. There are a couple of degrees I suggest that the lower one is the one that's out and the higher one is the one that's more accurate. But at the moment, this one says 55% humidity and that one says 53, and that's not good enough. Therein lies the first problem. The problem can be resolved by getting Hurricane Hector out and turn the place into a steam room. But I'm going to have to go very, very careful, because if I haven't got the temperatures, I don't want the humidity getting as high as it used to around the other place. I mean, when I had sort of 26 to 28 degrees centigrade, I was happy to keep it at 70-75% humidity. Well, if I'm only going to get 22, 23 degrees, 70 might be, well, 70 will be okay, 75 might be a little high. The problem being that it's a mist that circulates with circulating fans, and if it gets too heavy, plants can start collecting the mist and getting damp on them. So that's not what I want. I just want the air humid. So Hurricane Hector is going to have to come out. There's no point in putting Hurricane Hector on in here when this door to the lounge is open. It won't work, because it's not going to try and, it'll be trying to humidify that as well, and it just won't work. I'll be wasting RO water and electricity. So this door needs to be shut. And at the moment, the only way I'm getting 20, 21 degrees in here during the day is with this door open, and the residual heat comes in from the lounge. Yeah? So somehow or other, these two have got to come together. And I'm hoping that this coming week, we're supposed to be getting some very warm weather for the time of year. Up to sort of possibly 20 degrees. Well, that's what I need to know. When it's 20 degrees out there, what is it going to be in here? Will it have any effect on in here because it's warmer outside? I mean, obviously when it's colder outside, there's a heat loss through the glass. So I'm warming it up in here using some of my house heat, but it's going out through the glass. It's dissipating because the temperature outside the glass is lower. Yeah? So it'll always find its way to the low point. Air is funny stuff. It likes to be all the same. It doesn't like variables. So if it's cold in one place and warm in another, they'll try and mix and make the two the same. So we've got to sort the humidity out. It's important. And to do that, I can't have this grow room as it is now. Listen. There's no sound. Why is there no sound? Because there's no fans on. And the only fan I've got at the moment is the circulating fan hooked up to the heater, which mainly comes on at night. During the daytime I've got no airflow, so that's got to be sorted as well. Now, this fan that I've got with the heater is actually too powerful. So you sort of think, well, get the next size down then. But what I've found is when you get the smaller fans, they give you a much more direct, flow. So it's more like a draft, if you see what I mean. So sometimes perhaps a bigger one. I'll look into that. I don't know yet. But yeah, I need to get airflow 24/7 out here. I need to get that sorted. And at the moment I'm running an extension lead from inside of the house to run the heater and the fan off of. Now, there is a box down near the floor in the corner there that runs the lights, and the wire, the electric feed for that box comes through the wall and has been taken off of one of the double wall sockets, which means it's on a 13 amp ring, I would imagine, I would hope. Yeah, because lighting rings are separate and they're normally 5 amp, I think. They haven't got such a heavy load, obviously. But 13 amp, so you can plug all your other stuff in, your telly and your microwave and your oven and whatever, washing machine, all those are on that higher usage circuit. So if that little spur has been taken off of there, it'll happily take the load that I'm going to give it out here. Because obviously if there's a circulating fan on, see, I might need two. I don't know yet. I mean, ideally I'd like one right up in the corner, yeah, as high as I can get it, angled, so that it wafts around like that, yeah, and distributes the air nicely. That's my theory. But would one be enough? Will one get into the depths of the corners? I think it probably will. You have to bear in mind when Hurricane Hector fires up, that actually that moves the air. So it chucks out, you know, a mist at a rate of knots. There's a rate of mist coming out, so it's moving the air. And you have to bear in mind that in the not too distant future, I would hope that the heater won't be needed anymore, which frees up that circulating fan. So I only need to buy one more, I think, and I'll be okay. So those are the plans to try and get the atmosphere in here right, which I can't do yet because of this door being open during the day. However, I can get a circulating fan up and running. I just won't be able to do the humidity yet. And obviously I'm not chucking water all over the floor like I could do around the other place because it was a concrete floor. I can't be doing that here. So the only humidity I get here is when I've watered stuff. Yeah, the humidity rises. I've got my moss trays down there, but in the volume of air I've got here, they don't give off enough to actually raise the humidity a noticeable amount. So we've got some plans to get this place better than it is now. How it is now will do for now, but as you can see, things are coming into growth. Now with a lot of the dendrobiums, they're going to bloom first, so they can, you know, they're okay to wait for a bit. You don't need the high humidity for the blooms. That's for growing. So we'll see how we go. But yeah, a bit of sorting out to do. And then there'll be some rearranging eventually because once the better weather comes, I'll want to go in and out of this door. So the shelving unit that's in front of the door will have to go somewhere else. And I haven't decided where yet, but it will have to move. And then I'll have free access there. And at that time, providing I can get the gate in the carport blocked off properly, because it isn't proper at the moment, then the cats can be allowed in the back garden again. They'll be allowed to go out. I'll probably make a rod for my own back, because what will happen is cats are like that. They will stand in front of a door and yowl. Meow, meow, meow. And you open the door and they walk away from it. They don't want to go through it at all. They just want your attention. So I've got this horrible feeling I let them out and they're going to have a walk round like that in a circle and come and sit there and yowl to come back in. And you let them back in and they'll sit there and yowl to go out. So this might not be the best of ideas, but I want them to be able to go outside. It seems very unfair for two adult cats that have been able to come and go with their own enclosed garden for the last 12 years plus, and now suddenly they're shut indoors and they can see the garden but they're not allowed in it. So we'll get that sorted as well. It's only fair. Right, so that'll do for today because my battery's getting low. We don't want that to shut down. So yeah, changes are afoot out here. They were always in a long-term plan, but this growing season's kicking off now, you know, and I'd like to see what happens to the temperature in here with that door shut when it's warmer outside. Now it won't always be warm outside, it's still only March, but we're heading towards April, you know, and then it's May and June is midsummer. It soon comes round. So what I'm after is to see whether the temperature comes up much in here during this coming week when we're supposed to be getting some nice weather with some much higher temperatures than we've had. They'll be the highest temperatures this year so far. But let's see what effect it has in here. At the moment I'm pretty confident that the heat that's in here now has come from the lounge and it's possibly leaching to a degree out into what is a lower temperature outside. It was a low temperature this morning. There wasn't a frost, but it wasn't that far off. So the outside temperatures and the night temperatures are still cold out there. Therefore they would be cold in here, so the heater is still required at night. And obviously that's an electric fan heater. That dries the air. So, you know, I'm lacking in humidity at the moment. I'll do something about it. Anyway, that'll do for today. Thanks for dropping by and listening to the waffle. And yeah, as I say, a couple of new blooms there, some purchases, and oh, I forgot to say, I did go round the other house, back round the old house, and I collected some more garden tubs that were left out for me. I collected a few items out of the shed to do with repotting bonsai, but I'm not sure they're going to be any good to use, but I brought them round anyway. And I brought my metal table round. I banged on next door and I said, can you do me a favour, and if I lift the table over the fence, can you bring it round the side of your house out to the front? And it wouldn't fit in the back door. When I took that table down to the other house, the legs were off and they get screwed on. Well, those screws are rusted solid, so, and it wouldn't go back through the back door with the legs on. So it went over next door, and they, you know, my old house was a terrace, so no alleyways. And anyway, we got the table back here. The first thing I did was pick it up and put my thumb through it. It's badly rusted. It's got one job to do, which is allow me somewhere flat out there to repot the bonsai this year. And then later this year my money will come through, my inheritance money will come through, and I can deal with getting a better table, you know, for future years. So that's all it's got to do, is last long enough to repot my bonsai this year. They won't need doing again for another 3 or 4 years, you know. Once you get your trees reasonably mature, you know, there's some people think they should repot every year. I don't go with that. I go with the Peter Chan theory. Repot them when they're bursting out of the pot and there's no more room for any roots. And then you make space for new roots to grow and put them back in. If you watch Peter Chan repot a bonsai, as opposed to some other people I've seen, he doesn't take all the old media off. He only takes some of it off, and he leaves some on there. So some of the roots don't actually get disturbed. The ones round the edge are the ones that get disturbed, and they're the ones that are most likely to branch out and start growing again. Yeah? And that's what I'm on about, making room. By taking that off round the edges like that, when it goes back in the same pot, there's a gap all round the outside. That's where the new media goes and the new roots will grow into. But don't need doing every year. But yes, I mean, my Deshojo maple, I can see the red bits from here. The buds are breaking. It needs doing now. And that may well get done tomorrow. I've got my mounts to water tomorrow, and that's all I've got to water in here. And I've got to get the RO unit going to replace. I'm down to half of one of my containers of water. That's not even enough to water the mounts. But so we may repot the first bonsai tomorrow. And you're going to be surprised what I do to the DeSoto. Very surprised. It's a technique that I've seen used many times before, and it works. But it looks quite destructive when you see it. But it does work. I'll explain it when I do it. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for dropping by. See you again next time. And no, I'm not going to bother on the Sunday videos. They don't link naturally to another one. I'm trying to get linked videos, as you know, so that one video leads into another one on the end, which can possibly lead into another one. The Sunday chats don't lend themselves for that, because they're mixed. They're all different types of things being talked about. So they don't naturally lead to another one, if you see what I mean. So, oh, and the other thing I've got to do is I've got to talk. Second Saturday of April, I've got to stand up and do a talk at Wessex, which I haven't even started yet. And I've been messed about, something wicked. That was talk, that book was talked. That talk was booked for September. Between when I agreed to it and September, nearly all of my dendrobiums would have bloomed and come back into growth and could have been filmed as part of that talk. It's now been moved to April. Hardly any of them will bloom, and most of them haven't come back into growth yet. So I'm going to have to go back to old videos on YouTube, because I don't keep the clips. I keep more nowadays, but and download them off YouTube and edit them to try and put the talk together. That's an extreme amount of work that I was hoping, I shouldn't have had to do, quite honestly. But we do our thing, and it'll have to be done, because I've agreed to do the talk, so it's got to be done. But that's going to tie me up for some time. It takes a long time. I've got some software that downloads a YouTube video and maintains its original quality. So if it's on YouTube as an HD video, it will download it in that quality. But if you take a half an hour video, it takes 2 hours to download. Then I've got to edit it take the bits out of that video that I actually want, if you see what I mean. So first of all, I've got to watch the video to see if there's anything in there I want. Then I've got to download it, and I've got to edit the bits out. Multiplied by quite a few videos, because it won't all be in one video, will it? This is a large workload I've got to do now. But I'm going to keep it to a minimum and try and get away with as much as I can. But you've got to try and do a good job, haven't you? If you've been asked to do the talk, you need to put some effort in and get it as good as you can in the time given. So we'll have a go at that. And you'll get to see it first. So I'll post it on YouTube for viewing and comments and things like that. But the trouble is, when I put the talk together using video clips, there's not much I can do about it apart from spell check pop-ups and things like that, because the video clips are already there, aren't they? I can take bits off, you can't really add bits in, and you can't edit videos to the extent that you change what you're seeing. Yeah, there. So we'll do what we can, and I'll see you next time. But we will definitely have some bonsai videos, or video, at least one this week, because nothing much happens with the bonsai. Spring trim and repotting, yeah, they're not all going to get repotted, but more are than aren't. And then nothing much will happen to them until they need another trim later in the season, just to keep their shape. So it's a hobby that doesn't lend itself to YouTube really, because there's not much goes on. It has little bursts of activity and then nothing for ages, like in the winter, nothing. So we'll get on and do a bit of that. Some people enjoy it, some people are not interested. Well, you know, I like the variety in the channel, and so do others, so that is a bit of variety. Right, thanks for dropping by again. See you next time.